Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Croydon Constitutionalist podcast, bringing classical liberalism to South London and beyond through Stitcher, YouTube and the Apple Podcasts. My name is Dan Heaton and my partner in podcasting today is Mike Swadling, the co-founder of the Croydon Constitutionalists. Mike, it's been a little while since the last podcast. Has anything happened that we might want to discuss?
Well, Dan, good to speak again on one of our podcasts, and yes, things have been busy, and that's maybe part of the reason we've taken a little while here. So we're covering Brexit, the recent parliamentary shenanigans, predictions of what might happen, some Leavers of Croydon events and some upcoming events we've got. Now is the time to take part and fight for Brexit. We've got, in April, a debate for democracy that we're running in Croydon. We want to talk about that. The recent council tax rise, once again, from Croydon Council. And the today, as we record this, the Norbury and Pollards by-election and some thoughts on that.
Cheers, Mike. So, what a week it has been in Parliament with Brexit. The withdrawal agreement has had its second go at being approved and was kicked out this time by, I believe, 149 votes. And then there were various amendments put forward from all sides of the House. In relation to whether or not Parliament is happy to leave with no deal or not, and whether or not there should be an extension to Article 50. Mike, have you enjoyed the past week?
I have been more and more depressed this past week. It so happens I've been in most of the nights the votes have been on and watching them and doing various work for work and work on my laptop personally. And just found listening to this the most depressing set of events. We don't have a government. We have a parliament that frankly seems to despise the people. We have a parliament that despises process. We have an elite that simply have no concept of what their role is in running Britain, and that is to represent us, not dictate to us.
Indeed, and in past scenarios you've had MPs voting how they wished, political parties voting how they wished, but they outsourced this decision to the people, and the people decided. 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union. We had to wait 9 months for Article 50 to be triggered, and it's now nearly 2 years since that date, and we're talking about delays. Absolutely outrageous. But let's look a little bit deeper at what's happened this week. So, on the eve of the second go at a meaningful vote, Theresa May returned from, I think it was Strasbourg. It could have been Brussels. I think it was Strasbourg. But hey, why not have two homes for the European establishment?
Well, it's just our money.
Indeed. It's someone else's money, quick, spend it. She returned, Chamberlain-like. I thought she would come back with something. She actually came back with two things, one of which was called an instrument, although it wasn't as melodic as one would have liked, and saying she had legal guarantees regarding the backstop. Okay, let's have a look at the detail. So that was in the early hours of the morning. And then the Attorney General, by mid-morning, who had read this and went to Parliament and told them, yeah, you're going to be making a political decision, the legal risk is still there. I mean, it's crazy. Surely, he was apparently going there for the last couple of weeks trying to get something that he could justify as a lawyer, and don't forget, that's what he is and that's what his role is, although obviously he's a Conservative Member of Parliament. And he just couldn't provide the legal advice that you'd have thought they would have hoped for. As someone who instructs QCs, you can pretty much get them to say what you want most of the time. They might be stretching jurisprudence a bit sometimes, but you can normally get them to say something. And he couldn't. He just couldn't. The Cox's codpiece, as it's been referred to, just wasn't there. Now, we're hearing some stuff in the last 24 hours that another group of lawyers have looked at it and maybe there's something they can do there. But he said, as a lawyer, the legal risk is still there, but he believed that the backstop would never be used to keep us in the customs union. Yeah,
there's two fundamental problems with the way Theresa May and, let's be honest, Gavin Barwell and Ollie Robbins have approached this negotiation. Just for a moment, let's assume they've done it in good faith. And I think that's quite a stretch, but let's assume that. The first thing is, the EU, fair play to them, have said we will negotiate on our terms. We will not bend our terms, we will not change our rules. That's their want. I've feel no animosity to the EU for doing that. However, that doesn't suit us. So as you're negotiating for us, you simply bowl up and say, you need to change those terms so we can work together, or we will walk away. And you walk away at that point. It's not a hollow threat, you just walk away and leave. And if they never come back to you, they never come back to you. Chances are they might if you show a little bit of steel. That's completely been missing from this. The second thing I think they've really screwed up, and we look at this now, let's pretend we're not all sort of fervent Brexiteers. You're just a normal person going about your day-to-day life, and you're not that fussed either way. We are 14 days away from leaving the EU by law. We don't know how we're leaving the EU. Now, as someone that delivers change for a living, not as big as this, but some quite big changes to big systems for financial services organisations, you have a point before the change event where you button down the hatches, and actually it almost doesn't matter what you discover from that point onwards to the change date. You do not change your plan. So you say, this is my end point, that's my cut-off, that's what I'm doing. Even if someone wants to change it, even if someone comes up with a great idea, unless someone sees a systemic risk involved, you do not change, because that period of planning, that period of coolness is, and everyone understanding what you're doing, is absolutely critical. And I'm talking about an IT change in one company. This is a massive change to Britain, Brexit. Why did May not simply say 6 months prior to Brexit, we button this down and we go from there, and whatever we've reached at that point, that's what we're delivering? I can only assume the reason is because she's frankly incompetent. She's incompetent in negotiations with the EU. She's incompetent on doing what's right for Britain. I would say one thing I heard on the telly today, it was an ERG member being interviewed saying, all Theresa May has to do is turn round and say, we clearly can't agree what we're doing. We are leaving on March the 29th. It's WTO terms, and suspend Parliament, or just challenge Parliament to change that. And she would become a hero to Britain, despite how shambolic she's been today, and will probably stay as Prime Minister for another 4 years. But I just don't see her being capable of doing something that sensible.
Well, you talk about the negotiating strategy, which has clearly been flawed. I mean, I've heard people say that Theresa May is the only person who would go into DFS and come out with a full price sofa. I mean, it's just appalling. But you've got to look at this as well, a more micro level here. Her management of her party, and even her management of the cabinet. The situation is crazy. Over the past 12 months or so, Boris Johnson found that he couldn't agree with the Chequers proposals. He resigned. Same with David Davis, and later on Dominic Raab. And there have been other more junior ministers who resigned over this issue. There are clearly people in the cabinet who are not prepared to leave on no deal. There are people who are voting or abstaining against the government's position. In any other situation, ever, that minister, that Secretary of State, has to resign before doing so. And some have, in the last 6 months, on both sides of the fence, to be fair. At the moment, there are Secretary of State. Amber Rudd abstained the other night in a whipped government motion. Allegedly, because Gavin Barwell said she could. He obviously denies that. So even when we're talking about genuine constitutional matters here, genuine matters of constitutional conventions with Parliament, the ex member of Parliament for Croydon Central seems to be involved in this. But it's going crazy. So collective cabinet responsibility, a huge convention within the British Parliament has gone out of the window. Yesterday, I think it was, one of the motions was to extend Article 50 in a particular way, and Stephen Barclay, the current Brexit Secretary, finished the debate. He gave the closing remarks in the debate, arguing for the government's case, which was to extend Article 50 in a particular way. He then proceeded to vote against a motion he had just argued for. This is bizarre. It's obviously mayhem. I think the Labour Party leadership is taking advantage of that situation. I don't think they have a clear view as to what should happen next. They're just trying to undermine the government in a way, and they hope there'll be a general election or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's gone by me.
To be fair to Labour, that is their job. The job of an opposition is to oppose, and that's what they're doing. And I know today, and I can't remember her name, unfortunately, a junior shadow minister in the Labour Party resigned because she wanted to vote against a second referendum, and she believes that will be or is Labour Party policy. And I say will be or is because, frankly, who knows what Labour Party policy is from one day to the next. But she followed the rules, the constitutional convention, that if you vote against the party mandate, you resign from your ministerial or shadow ministerial position. This is a Labour Party that's potentially about to be up in front of a Equalities Commission because of anti-Semitism. A bunch of people have just left. There's Tom Watson set up an insurgent group, and it has better party management than the Tories. Gavin Barwell, you are to blame for that. I just want to be really clear about that. It's better party management than the Tories is unbelievable. The situation with Steve Barclay, this is like schoolroom debate society stuff. I'm a member of Debating Society. You can see stuff I publish about it from time to time. It's fun. You go and have a debate, you argue the opposite of what you believe, you argue about something you don't care about, you finish up, you all have a vote, and you finish up having a nice cup of tea or coffee or a beer, whatever it might be, and talk about the ins and outs and how you thought about your argument. But you don't adopt a passionate position, you use debating skills. That's fine. This is the Houses of Parliament. This is the biggest constitutional change in 40 years of British history, and we've got a cabinet minister arguing one way and voting another. It's utterly beyond bonkers.
Exactly. Just debating society, A-level, common room, however you want to look at it. It is absolutely outrageous. But Theresa May's cabinet is clearly falling apart. I'd like to give a hat tip to Donald Blaney, who some of you won't know who he was, but he was the first ever, I believe, chairman of Conservative Future back in the 1990s when the Conservative Party merged the Conservative students and the Young Conservatives and Conservative graduates. So he knows a lot of these people who have subsequently made it to become MPs and cabinet ministers. And he said, if the idea of bringing Amber Rudd back into the cabinet was that it was better to have her inside the tent pissing out rather than outside the tent pissing in, it failed. She's kept the tent door zipped, peed all over the floor, puked in the sleeping bag, farted in the pillows, and smeared the tent walls with feces. Now, perhaps a slightly crude analogy there, but nonetheless, there's a lot of truth to that. Amber Rudd, who, I have to be careful about this, but was certainly accused of misleading Parliament when she was the Home Secretary, I believe the position was, in regard to the Windrush people who were deported incorrectly, was brought back into Parliament, brought back into the cabinet, and this is how she's behaved towards the Prime Minister who gave put her trust in her after the last fiasco. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of a government. I want to move away just to think about it outside of Brexit for a moment. And it's a massive thing, clearly. Brexit is the massive thing. These guys are employed to do a job. They're employed to represent us. They're employed to lead us. They're employed to manage the business of government in this country. And yet we have no leadership. We have no cabinet. We have ministers that are more interested in pushing their career prospects or their brother's proposition for a second vote than doing their job. They take hundreds of thousands of pounds individually, many millions collectively, from us, and they are not providing the basic services and management this country needs. Now, I'd like a lot fewer politicians. I'd like them doing a lot less. But I know I'm probably in a minority in the country in saying that. Therefore, they are meant to be there managing things. There's no other business going through Parliament. There's no other business going through government. And yet these people continue to, frankly, thieve our money.
Essentially, yeah, you're not going to get any disagreement from me. I mean, whether or not, like you say, Brexit aside almost, but maybe Brexit will be the key to this. It's going to undermine people's belief in democracy, that the vote counts for anything. And, politicians, they get a bad rep. It's not going to get any better, is it?
No, I've often defended politicians. I felt the last election, the main candidates, the 4 MPs I know in Croydon, I broadly think took a pay cut to be in politics. They're people that would have earned more outside of politics. In some cases, definitely did at one time. And they are choosing, as much as I might disagree with them, to sacrifice income for working for the country. But they're not choosing to work for the country. They're choosing to serve their own ego. They are choosing to vote against the will of the British people. We give them their honorific position. We follow their laws. We pay our council tax and our TV poll tax and our income and other things partly because threat of arrest, but mainly because we accept that it might not be in our decision, but we all get a vote and we all get a chance to remove them if we don't like what they're doing. I'm not sure we get to remove them anymore. I'm not sure that voting matters. I'm not sure that voting can change anything, because right now, and things might change, British law is still we leave on the 29th of March, but right now Parliament is saying we should ignore the biggest vote in British history. If they're saying that, at the next general election, when they get swept aside, or if they think they get swept aside at the next general election, what on earth makes you think they'll run it? What on earth makes you think they'll hold that election? What about if they hold it, but they stop the forces of opposition speaking? They kick them off YouTube, they kick them off Twitter. That's happening today. That's happening with people like Tommy Robinson, who I'm not particularly a fan of, but they are being kicked off social media. What on earth makes you think, if this falls, another vote is meaningful ever again in this country? And I say that right now, I don't know why we should listen to our government in any way, shape or form. I think the fundamental bond of trust between us has been broken, and there's a lot more of us than them, and they need to repair it.
Indeed. So we are where we are, as we often say. Mike, what do you think is going to happen over the next few weeks, or possibly even months?
Well, on a light note, obviously this weekend Palace will overcome Watford in the FA Cup. We'll proceed to, which may already be wrong by the time anyone hears this, we will proceed to the final and shoot up the league. But my guess is that Theresa May's deal will get passed. I think come the edge point, she will find a way to buy off enough people to get that through. I think enough MPs get that delaying Brexit will be an issue, and a massive issue. The March to Leave is about to start this weekend. When that starts gathering pace, it gets some publicity, and more thousands turn up, I suspect all of a sudden MPs will start to get it. And just enough will see the penny drop that they cannot possibly delay Brexit. And this might be wishful thinking, but not wishful thinking is that the withdrawal agreement then passes. It just, terrible though that is, it feels, yes, it's what I think will happen, not what I want to happen.
Yeah, I mean, my preference wouldn't be to be where we are at all. Like you say, we should have reached a conclusion as to what we were going to do some considerable time ago. But I suspect, whether it happens in the next couple of weeks or there's a slight delay of some sort, I do think the Theresa May deal, or something extremely close to it, is going to get through. If we look at the maths as they currently stand, I think it was defeated by 149 votes the other day. So that doesn't take that many people to switch. It sounds like a lot, but it's not really. If she can get the DUP to change their mind by whatever means, that's what, about 10 I think it is. She just then needs to get the last few from the ERG. Now there are probably 20, maybe 24 of the ERG who will not vote for this deal. In fact, they're actually going to dig their heels in now and not vote for it. They obviously have concerns about the backstop, but there's some that just don't like other aspects of the deal, and that's fair enough, and I have a lot of sympathy with that. However, she just needs to get enough, and I think, Mike, you're right. If it was to be put forward again with all that's going on in the next week, let's say, and if the mood music was that the DUP were on side with it, another 50 or so Conservatives were on side with it, you can see that some Labour MPs who may have abstained or reluctantly voted against it may be persuaded to go for it. I think they're holding back perhaps on voting for it because they don't want to be seen to have voted for it and it still not get through, whereas they're happy if it gets through by half a dozen and their names on that, they'll be quite happy with that situation. I suspect that's what will happen. There's talk of the lawyers looking at it again. It was frankly crazy if what happened was true, and I always have my suspicions that these things are choreographed, you need a lot longer to look at this new wording than the amount of time that Geoffrey Cox had. He may have already known about it, who knows, if it was choreographed. But whether it was good or bad, who knew? So we will see. We will see. But hopefully there is some situation there. My suspicion is if Theresa May actually wants to get that deal, her deal, across the line in a timely fashion, I would suggest to her, and whether Mr. Barwell will suggest this, who knows, that she gets the DUP on side, and then she goes to the ERG, and she tells them that if they get this deal through, she will resign shortly thereafter. Because quite clearly, whether it's to get Brexit through or whether it's to get the Conservative Party back in any sort of shape, she needs to go. Yes, we might have preferred it if she went in the autumn. She needs to go now. There needs to be a full-on Conservative Party leadership election that must go to the membership, because the last one didn't. And if you want to have somebody like Amber Rudd up against somebody like Boris Johnson or somebody like Dominic Raab or whoever, I know who will win that, but it needs to go to the membership. And if it does, and you get a strong Brexiteer, they'll do a better job. They've got a massive party management issue to deal with, certainly there, with the likes of Amber Rudd and whoever go off and join the Tiggers or what have you. Who cares, really? Because some of these people surely are going to be deselected.
The Conservative Party has got a massive problem there. A bunch of people who clearly aren't Conservative, clearly don't believe in Britain, aren't going to come round. The party itself is very Brexit tea, and the voters of the Conservative Party are very much more Brexiteers. People like Amber Rudd have very little place in the modern Conservative Party as it's currently running, and they have brought it to this position. The one thing, having said, I think the deal will go through, I just want to remind anyone that can speak to any Conservative MP, they will be running at the next election on having sent £600 for every man, woman and child in this country to Brussels. That's the £39 billion bribe for nothing, is £600 for every man, woman and child. So if you think about a young single parent with her child, £1,200 for them is being sent to Brussels. Could that be spent at the child's school? Could that be spent on making sure you can get an appointment at the doctor's? Could that be spent on providing free NHS care, filling potholes, getting the trains to run? All those things, the Conservative Party is saying, no, we're not interested in them. We want to give that money to Brussels. People don't understand £39 billion. Even someone with Dan's largesse doesn't understand as much as £39 billion. But all of us understand what £600 is. It's that holiday. It's that deposit for rent. It's that new sofa or part of it. We understand what £600 is. And I wouldn't want to be an MP trying to run an election having given away £600 of each of the people I'm asking to vote for me.
It's somebody else's money, isn't it? Same thing again. So, whilst all this has been going on in the last few weeks, we haven't been standing still here in Croydon. We've been working with others as part of the Leavers of Croydon group, and we've been doing quite a bit since the turn of the year. Mike, what have we been up to?
So far, there's been a few things we've done, and a few things we're doing. We've done some January drinks in the Skylark. Quite a lot of you appeared. Thank you very much for that. Good turnout. Good to get together, socialise, catch up with old friends and meet some new people. We had a councillor turn up, which was nice. And, we really just got the conversation going. We need to keep together as a group because who knows when we need to be back up and running again. So thank you for all that turned up. And we've got another drinks coming up, which I'll talk about a bit in a minute. We had a street stall in Addiscombe. I know we've done leafleting in Addiscombe. Oh, I should remember. It's shocking. We've done some leafleting in Addiscombe. Particularly, we leafleted Sarah Jones's office to remind her that Croydon Central voted Leave. Unfortunately, that reminder didn't take. I hope, as with Barwell, it takes when she loses her job. But we've done a leaflet around Addiscombe and some videos online. Come have a look at our website. You can see those. And we've done the same in Caterham. So we went out of Croydon, went to East Surrey and the lovely town of Caterham, and reminded Sam Geema MP, an MP pretty much foisted on the people of East Surrey, an MP who probably needs an A to Z to find the area, that he is a rabid Remainer. Tandridge voted Leave. He needs to respect the people that he's there to represent, and he needs to respect the people of Britain. An excellent day. We had lots of people turn up, loads of support. We had a mock coffin out, and really it's the coffin of British democracy that Parliament is foisting on us. And a really good thing. Again, videos and details from the day are on our website, worth having a look at. These events, if you've never done something like that before, what we tend to do, and we've got one coming up in Wallington, what we tend to do is stand in the street and hand out some leaflets. We say hello, we say good morning, we say make sure we leave the EU and hand them a leaflet. Most people walk past, most people actually take a leaflet, to be fair. Quite a lot just walk past, you don't bother them. Occasionally people want to chat, and anyone listening to this I'm sure will be well versed to chat with them on why we want to leave. We never really have any problems, can't think of any we've had any time for ever really. And if we get enough people out, a couple of us will often wander off and just do some leafleting in the streets, and if that's in houses, if that's something you're more comfortable with. I'd really encourage you to get along. We have 14 days at the time of recording. We need Brexit to happen. Get involved. So to that end, Sutton voted leave and Britain voted leave. I just keep reminding that. Sounds obvious, but our MPs don't seem to get it. On Saturday the 23rd of March, we're going to be in Sutton, and we're going to be asking Tom Brake MP to honour the democracy that we are, and as a Lib Dem, it's not something he might fully understand, and leafleting in Wallington. We'll be there from 11 till 1 p.m. on Wallington High Street, and we're meeting outside Boots at 11 a.m. that day. So come along, 23rd, Saturday the 23rd of March. Your chance to get involved and help again put some pressure on someone that needs to understand that this is a vote for their job. That's the way we put pressure on these people, and we do that. A couple of other upcoming events we've got. Some more drinks, again in the Skylark. So March the 29th, Leaving Day, we will either be having a wake to British democracy or a celebration of leaving. So 7 p.m. upstairs in the Skylark. Come and meet us, come and enjoy a drink. It's going to be a depressing day or a great celebration. Why not join your buddies in Croydon to do that? Really, really useful, important day. And going on through that period, I'd like to remind everyone that there will also be the March to Leave. That kicks off this weekend. It's run by Leave Means Leave, marching from Sunderland to London. There will be a variety of stage marches. I would say go online and have a look. We can't keep up with all the things that are happening, so I would encourage you to keep up and be involved yourself. Have a look at the March to Leave website, and if you can, get up there and march down with them. And certainly on Friday the 29th of March, we will be in London. We'll be coming back for our drinks, but we'll be in London initially. Get involved and take part in that march.
Definitely, and just like to reiterate that with the especially with the Caterham event that we had recently, there were a number of people who this was the first time they'd ever done any sort of political campaigning at all. A couple of people, quite different chaps, really seem to enjoy themselves. So you can be a complete novice in this sort of thing and get involved. Also, it was good to see Richard Plackett from the Social Democrat Party. Yes, they are still about. Indeed, Patrick O'Flynn, who was a UKIP MEP, joined them fairly recently. And it was interesting to hear. We had a drink afterwards, and it was interesting to hear his views on things, not just Brexit, but other matters as well. And the stark contrast between himself and, let's say, Chuka Umunna, who's our neighbour to the north, who obviously has left the Labour Party and become a Tigger, along with Anna Soubry. They probably agree on various things, but apparently the Tiggers don't believe in Britain, whereas the SDP do. So it was good to have him along, and he's also going to be coming along to an event that we're going to have in April. Yeah,
just coming back to that, speaking to Richard Plackett, really interesting conversation. Just as a comparison with the Tiggers, I think the SDP's economic policies and the economic policies of someone like Chuka Umunna are not that different. They believe in a free market economy with fairly large government spending. Now, I would possibly personally argue that those two things are slightly contradictory, but that's what they believe in, and that's, I think, a fairly popular viewpoint in Britain. The fundamental difference being, of course, the SDP, unlike the Tiggers, believe in free speech. The SDP, unlike the Tiggers, believe in democracy. The SDP, unlike the Tiggers, believe in Britain. And that's, it's not quite my politics, but it's really refreshing to see a party of the left, and I know half of Britain's over there, that believes in Britain. And that's not something we've got in either the Tiggers or the Labour Party states. That was really refreshing.
Which brings us on nicely to the next item on the agenda, which is the upcoming event in April, where we're going to be holding a debate for democracy. Mike, what was the thinking behind this?
So I think, Dan, you and I, since setting up the CC, have been looking for opportunities to run events in Croydon, the likes of which you'd only really normally see in London, and bringing that kind of different parties debating together, challenging ideas, but put them to a local level and bring national figures or regional figures down to our fair town. We're very much about classical liberalism, but also about free speech and putting a multitude of ideas. And with this massive despondency with the parties that represent us in Westminster today, we wanted to highlight some of those new parties that are coming up that believe in democracy and actually representing the people and believe in some of the things we believe in. Most fundamentally, not wanting to imprison us for saying the wrong thing. So we thought, well, let's not think about it, let's do it. Ideally, in a post-Brexit world, we've got a group of people together to take part in what we call the debate for democracy. So it's 5 parties taking part in a short speech each, and then a panel debate. And an idea, an opportunity for them to highlight what they do, and an opportunity for you to see and question them. The event will be at the Green Dragon House on the 18th of April from 7 p.m. So that's upstairs in central Croydon, 18th of April from 7 p.m. at Green Dragon Pub, not house. We've got 5 parties and 5 representatives, and we've got the Democrats and Veterans Party, the Foundation Party leader, the Libertarian Party, the SDP, as we've already spoken about, and the local UKIP chairman, a position Dan used to hold. So, Dan, do you want to? We know many of these people. Do you maybe want to highlight on a few of them?
Yeah. So we've got Neville Watson from the Democrats and Veterans Party. That's the party that was founded by John Rhys-Evans after he was unsuccessful in going for the UKIP leadership. They're very much, obviously, all these parties believe in Brexit, but they're very much in favour of direct democracy. So they're looking at ways of having almost more referendums, different ways of doing them. But that's certainly a key feature of their thinking. We've also got Chris Mendes from the Foundation Party. Chris worked with us before he was got involved with us in the Vote Leave campaign. And that was his first involvement in politics. Certainly didn't think that a chap who came along and helped us deliver some leaflets and then got more involved and we did some public meetings would then go on to set up his own political party in due course. But it's a political party which has a couple of councillors in Kent. So he's going to come back to Croydon and he's going to be representing them. We've also got Sean Finch of the Libertarian Party. Again, Libertarian Party, pro-Brexit, but very much pro-free trade and very little government involvement in social or economic affairs. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got to say. As I mentioned earlier, we've got Richard Plackett from the SDP. I suppose the SDP is the longest running of these parties.
It is indeed, yes.
Founded in the early 80s. But yes, it's back, as they say. And certainly, obviously, we know it's got an MEP at the moment. So he was involved, the Labour Party in
Croydon North East,
yes.
When Bernard Weatherall was the Speaker seeking re-election, as in the 1987 election. And just after that, Richard was the Secretary of Croydon North East Labour Party.
Indeed, so quite a bit of political experience there. And finally, for UKIP, we've got Hung Wei, who lives in the Coulsdon area, and he's recently taken on the job of the branch chairman for Croydon. He has stood in a general election before in Lewisham, I believe. So he's got some experience, but it'll be interesting to see what they all have to say.
And from our perspective, one of our hopes for the evening is, as we all agree on Brexit, that we might touch upon that, and clearly people are entitled to ask the questions they want to ask. But really, we focus on hearing from these parties what their values are, what their policies are, what their ideas are for the future of Britain beyond Brexit. And that's certainly our hope for it. Great opportunity to meet some people in quite prominent positions in these parties. and really question and quiz them and get to know what's going on in politics outside the mainstream. If you're despondent in current politics, I hope that night will give you a chance to find a home. And that's really our desire from it. So I'll say again, 7 p.m, 18th of April, upstairs at the Green Dragon Pub. Be there, a great event, we hope.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Now we've had the usual letter drop through our letterboxes recently from the good people at Croydon Council. They're seemingly putting the council tax up. This is money they demand from me on pain of imprisonment, I believe. Nonetheless, they've gone and put it up once again. Mike, how much have they gone and put it up by this time?
So council tax has gone up by the maximum burden available of 2.99% for the council and 4.99% overall. The council tax bill you have is made up of a number of parts. For the GLA, some additional for social care, for police and fire services, and for the council. The council put it up exactly the maximum amount it can of 2.99% without causing a referendum, as it would at 3%. To quote Sir Humphrey Appleby, pitch for as much as they think they can get away with and then think what to spend it on. Appears to be Croydon Council's view at the moment. I can't possibly see how else you can interpret it when they're if they really think we need more money, and a lot more money, put it to the people. Yeah, put it to the people. If you don't think that, if you think you can actually budget, you surely don't year after year come out for exactly the maximum amount before a referendum. But Croydon voted Labour, and that's what our current council does. Except it's not just Labour. The Conservatives also voted for the 2.99% rise. So the two parties in Croydon Council both are determined to take as much money as they can from you. Of course, it's not surprising when you have some of the highest paid councillors in London. In 2015, in fact, they were the highest paid councillors in London, according to the TPA. And no surprise when you've got that sort of vested interest that you want to grab as much money from people as possible. We're going to issue a press release on this. I had a little look the other day and worked with Dan on some ideas of how we can reduce this. So not an overly ambitious target. We want to bring that 2.99% down by 10%, by 1/10 of that value. So a 2.69% rise, less than we're running today, less than it's going up by. It's not a huge, it's still an increase. It's not ideal, but we've got to find £500,000 worth of savings. And bear in mind, we don't have full access to the council's books, but we found that 500,000 without affecting one frontline service. We in fact found 600,000 without affecting one frontline service. There'll be a press release going out on that effect soon. Hopefully the local papers will pick it up, but who knows. I'd certainly encourage you to share that with your friends and neighbours, particularly as they get their another extortionate round of council tax bills through.
So Mike, we found a few ways in which they could cut the council, or cut the rise in the council tax, a reduced rise. But what have they been spending money on in the past couple of years to need to put such a rise in? Have you got any examples, perchance, of some of the wonderful things they've been spending our money on?
Each year, tens of thousands of pounds goes to Box Park. I like Box Park. I was in it yesterday having my lunch. It's an upper middle class place to go. Perhaps giving away what I think I am. I'm not really. I'm a good working class boy from Council House, but it costs money. I go there once a week for lunch. I don't do it every day because I simply can't afford it. I don't know why working class families in Croydon should pay for that. I don't want them to subsidise my lunch. I don't want to subsidise their lunch either, for that matter. Croydon Council is intent, perhaps because of the great photo opportunities, to pay thousands for it. I've been to every Croydon Pride. I enjoyed the Croydon Pride events. A few of my friends go are more actively involved in the Pride movement. It's a day in the sun with some entertainment and a drink. It's a great event. You pay for that. You subsidise that. £35,000 last year. I don't want you to subsidise my weekend. I don't see why I should subsidise yours either. But I don't want you to subsidise my weekend. I really don't want you to pay for someone to excrete on stage. I don't. If someone needs to take a poo, they should do that perhaps in the privacy of a bathroom. If they want to do it on stage and people want to watch that, I'm a very liberally minded person. I just don't think you should have to pay for it. That is literally one of the things that Croydon Council paid for in the last year. They paid for with your money, and that's why they seem to need a 2.99% pay rise.
It all comes down to someone else's money again, doesn't it? Because as Donald Blaney said, basically Amber Rudd treats the cabinet that way, and takes money and takes the piss basically. Unfortunately, that's what they've been up to, and that's why our council tax seems to be going up far more than it needs to do at all. Okay, so finally for this podcast, we've hot off the press, as it were. Last night there was the Norbury and Pollards Hill by-election. Unfortunately came about because of the untimely death of the previous councillor. Mike, what were the results last night?
So there were 7 candidates taking part last night. Oh dear, that was a shocking. I shouldn't remember that number. There were definitely 7 candidates taking part last night. Turnout was 25.3%, pretty low. Not to be unsurprising in a Labour stronghold, and really there was only over one winner. The candidates, just worth saying, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, UKIP and Green, as you might expect, but 2 independents. Some quite surprising results. The Labour candidate won with 64.5% of the vote, no great shock there. The Conservatives got 15.2% of the vote, down something like 10% from the local elections. A big drop, a big drop. There does appear to be a set of Conservative voters that are not prepared to vote Tory right at this moment in time. That's got to be worrying for those MPs that are trying to derail Brexit whilst keeping their party together. Well, it may be you've got to choose between one or the other. The third place was to an independent at 7.6%, Mark O'Grady, and then followed by the Greens, another independent whose name I won't pronounce, the Lib Dems on a shocking 3.3% of the vote, and UKIP on 1.9% of the vote. Now, I do want to say a bit about UKIP. Kathleen Garner, I know well. Obviously, we're formerly in UKIP. I know Kathleen would have worked very hard for the seat because she does. And I've had a similar percentage of votes when I stood for office, so I'm not certainly no criticism of her. It does really show the worrying collapse. There's two things I'll take away from this: is that the Tories stayed at home. Not sure they voted anywhere else, but they stayed at home, and that Brexit vote is not going to UKIP. That brand has a problem. I'll put it there, but they didn't move there. So another win for Labour. Unfortunately, a rabid Remainer, one I've had the misfortune of dealing with in the past. Let's see if becoming a councillor makes her act more appropriately.
One can only hope so. I'm certainly glad that she won't be representing me, as in I don't live in that ward that she's now the councillor for. But yeah, so no change therefore on Croydon Council. Labour hold that seat. So we've got a lot coming up, as we've discussed. A lot going on with Brexit. People should get in touch with us. It'd be great to hear from you and get involved in the upcoming events. Mike, how can they get in touch with us?
So we're available on Facebook at the Croydon Constitutionalists or Leavers from Croydon. We're on Twitter at Croydon Const. You can email us on croydonconstitutionalists@gmail.com. You can contact us at our website, and those details are on there. Or if you search for the Leavers of Croydon, you'll see that Facebook page as well. Lots of ways, and just if I may, a quick reminder again, Two big events coming up initially. The 23rd, this Saturday week, the 23rd of March, in Wallington, 7 a.m. Outside boots to leaflet there and make sure we get Brexit. 29th of March, 7 p.m. onwards, upstairs at the Skylark. So come on down to commemorate the day we're meant to be leaving. Get involved in the March to Leave, and certainly try and be in London on the 29th of March if you can. And then on the 18th of April, one for the diary, Debate for Democracy. It'd be great to see you, many of you, at all of those events.
Indeed, it's going to be a really, really busy couple of weeks. Please do get in touch. Please do get involved. We're not just fighting for Brexit anymore. We're fighting for democracy and the very essence of this country that we love. We'll be doing a podcast in due course, so do please look out for that, and we'll do another podcast shortly. As I say, get involved. But until the next podcast, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Goodbye.